All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening for our virtual mentorship session here on Zoom. And we are recording this evening's session as well for folks who weren't able to join us at this point in time. So we'll thank them for joining us and taking this in whenever it works for them. Um, I am beaming in from Treaty 1 territory in Winnipeg. This is the ancestral lands of the Anishinaabeg, Ininiwak, Ashuninniwak, Dene, and Dakota peoples, and is the homeland of the Red River Métis. And here we enjoy water from Treaty 3 at Shoal Lake 40 as well. Um, and I just want to point out, you'll see above my left shoulder, a couple of things that I like to keep uh, within sight. There's a wampum belt there actually that I got to hand make at one of two residential school museums. Um, the Woodlands Cultural Center it's just outside of Brampton. I was there about a year and a half ago for a day of learning, and I'm really grateful for that experience. It was very meaningful to me. And just below that actually is an Every Child Matters sticker from Inspire, which is one of many wonderful charities that a person can choose to support. That one in particular helps provide post-secondary opportunities for Indigenous students, um, and is something that I personally choose to support. Yeah, and I'm just grateful for all of you being here with us today. I am excited for some learning from one of our very own, Derek Klassen, who is beaming in from. Actually, I don't know exactly where you're beaming in from. Somewhere south of Winnipeg. And Derek is an MBA member, of course, a music educator who teaches grades 7 to 12 band in a few different communities south of Winnipeg, W.C. Miller Collegiate in Altona, Parkside School, and Gretna Elementary, which I'm sure keeps him on his toes at all times, in addition to the 5 and 2-year-old boys that are probably running around at home right now. And Derek, we're grateful that you could join us this evening, and we're excited to learn with you. So I'm going to hand it over to you, and off we go.
All right. Yes, thank you very much, Brent. And thank you everybody for spending an evening here. I know it's a busy time. There's lots going on, and you're probably preparing for concerts or maybe you had concerts already. So it's great to be able to just spend a bit of time together. And yes, I am coming in from Altona. That's where I live. So Altona is about an hour south of the Perimeter Highway, and I teach in Altona and Gretna. Gretna is just a town about 8 minutes south, right on the border of Manitoba and North Dakota. So yeah, it's great to be here, and I'm just honored to be able to share a little bit today. And I want to thank the MBA mentorship team and Brent and Bill for inviting me to be able to share tonight. I just wanted to note that I think the mentorship committee does amazing work, and I have benefited from it in my first couple of years as a teacher, especially. I was just really reliant on the support of colleagues and mentors, and even in the first couple of years, I remember doing mentorship events, like we did a conference, a mini conference at the beginning of the year a couple times, and I had Bill come out and work with my groups and work with me throughout those first couple of years, and that was such an important part of my development, and also helped me to feel connected. So I think that the work the MBA mentorship committee is doing is just so crucial, and I'm really just yeah grateful and to be able to be part of it a little bit now on a different in a different way. If you have questions today, hopefully there's going to be some time for that at the end, but also I'm going to let you know to feel free to email me at any time. I'm going to get my PowerPoint going in a second here, and my email's on there. So I'll do that now. But you can, if you have questions, by all means, you can shoot me an email anytime. Okay, here's my PowerPoint. Okay, so you should be seeing the PowerPoint now. All right, right on. And so you can see my email there, klassenDER@blsd.ca. There's also a PDF handout for the session with all the main points on a single page. And there's also some PDFs of the slides There's a couple of links to some examples that I'll be sharing today. So if you want to look at it later, you can find those links in the PDF slides. And Brent has put that in the mentorship webpage, so you can find that information there if you'd like to. So yes, outstanding opportunity and perpetual puzzle, the process of selecting festival repertoire. I put the "and" in the title on purpose because although this is a great opportunity for our students to go to festival and for us, it's always a challenge. It's always a new puzzle. So the "and" is very intentional. Outstanding opportunity and perpetual puzzle. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's get this moving. So yes, I've been teaching grade 7 to 12 band and jazz band for about 9 years now. And I just want to tell you that selecting festival repertoire can be daunting. It can be a big process, but I do believe that it's well worth the effort and the time in the end. Um, I think of it like a new adventure every year. So I know that's kind of cliche, but it is just every year is different and new. And one of the things about our profession is that it's never boring. I sometimes talk with other people who say like, I had a slow day at work today. And I'm just like, I don't know what that is. That's different. And I think it could be a challenge that we never have a slow day, but I think it's also a real blessing. And so, yeah, we can think of it like a new adventure, a new group to plan for every year. So some topics we're going to cover today in our session. So festival rep must-haves or non-negotiables, tips to help narrow things down because it's a big process. So how do we start to narrow things down? Variety, the syllabus. So every festival has a syllabus, a list of titles, and comments only versus graded. And that's for any level that's above level 1. You get to decide, am I going comments only or am I doing a graded or a ranked performance? And our timeline for selecting repertoire. So although this is going to be primarily from a high school festival perspective, I think it can apply well to level 1 festival too. And I'm going to have a few points that kind of relate specifically to those younger years and about level 1 festival in particular. And I think it can apply to jazz festivals too. You just have to apply or think about how you can apply these things in different ways depending on which festival you're planning for. And I just want to note as well that selecting repertoire is quite a personal thing. I hope to share some ideas with you and give you some examples that you can apply, but it's not really a step-by-step guide. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing. It has to be uniquely developed. And so you get to apply it in a way that works for you. And I think that's part of the beauty of it. Also, in that same line of thinking, some of the stuff I'm going to talk about is my opinion, and I'm totally okay if you have a different opinion. There's certain things that are going to be kind of personal or that you might think, I don't know if I agree exactly with what he's saying, and that's okay, totally okay. But maybe some of the things I'll say will help you consider something in a new way. And sometimes there's sort of a spectrum of, people might be on one end of the spectrum versus the other in some of the areas, and that's an okay thing. And I couldn't resist putting in a little disclaimer. Although I do feel like I spend a lot of time and effort and thought on selecting rep, I don't feel like an expert. Like every year is just a new challenge. Bill and I had a chuckle on the phone when he called me to invite me to do this. We just said like, it doesn't matter how many times you do this. It's always a new challenge every year. And that's not going to go away. So it's not like you arrive one day and you're like, oh, now I can pick rep really well. Nope, it's always a new challenge. It's always a new group in front of you, and that's okay. And you can simply gain experience and improve the process, but you're never going to get away from that challenge. So yeah, just something to note as we go through the presentation. So let's talk about some must-haves, at least that I think are must-haves for festival repertoire. And this will apply to any kind of repertoire you're picking, but in the festival repertoire world, there might be some things that are even a little bit more important or a little more specific. So we're going to talk about festival repertoire today, but you can apply a lot of this to any repertoire you're selecting. So you must like it. Don't program anything if you don't genuinely enjoy it or if your heart isn't in it. I think that if you like it, the kids are going to like it, or they're at least more likely to like it. And I think this can directly impact the success of your process and your product. I think it can really affect, in a positive way or maybe a negative way, the depth and artistry of your music making. So if you like it, and if it's really, gets you going, then I think that's a positive thing. So you must like it. And then it must be high quality literature. It must be music of substance and depth. And the syllabi are excellent guides for this. You're not going to find titles on the syllabi that are subpar or that are weak musically. So those are a good measuring stick for you. Even if you're selecting music that's not on the syllabus, that's a great place to see high quality literature. And one of the things I ask, or I think it's important to ask about your music is what will the students learn through the pieces? Um, High quality literature will always have some things that you're getting at, some skills and some concepts. So what will the students learn through this? What do you intentionally want to actually teach them? So you're going to be thinking about skills, like some examples would be like 6/8 time signature, key of concert A flat major. These are very concrete things, and there's so many different ones. Uh, and then also there would be conceptual ideas probably as well, such as maybe exploring different musical textures and colors, or perhaps connecting emotionally to a piece of music, or perhaps telling a story through a piece of music. So in whatever kind of pieces you're selecting, you want to think ahead of time about what are some skills and concepts that I'm actually going to be getting at through this music. And then a huge one is it must work for your ensemble. We want to set up our students for success. So they must be able to play it technically and musically. Um, I'm not saying we shouldn't give our students a challenge. We definitely need to challenge them. But we do need to ensure we're giving them something that they can master technically. So I think this is one of those things that's kind of a spectrum. Some people will think like we need to go for more of the most difficult stuff we can do. And some people will be more, well, we need to pick something a little easier and make sure we can do it musically. I think there's a sweet spot for everybody, and that's sort of personal. But we do have to think about giving them something that they're going to be able to master. I think the question should not be how hard a level can we play, but I think the question should be which level will challenge us technically while still allowing us to play musically. Um, and then we got to think about our strengths and program for them. I am very fortunate this year to have some excellent tuba players in my junior band, which is so cool. It's just amazing. I feel like I can play any repertoire because the tuba players are just there. And that's not always the case. So it's going to change how I think about my repertoire selection because now I can pick a piece where they have some range or where where the tuba part is more independent of the rest of the little brass. And they're always going to be able to lead musically. And in whatever group you're working with, you're going to have some kind of strength. So you think about that and how can you program for them? And then also your weaknesses or instrumentation difficulties. I've certainly had some of those in the past, and probably some of you have as well, where you notice there's certain areas that are not ready to lead musically, and how are we going to deal with that? Are we going to just in our selection make sure that we're careful about that? Are we going to try and write out some parts for some other people to help cover? And so there's different ways you can deal with that, but you have to think about it. And then where possible, I think it's important to consider individuals or sections that need a challenge. You're not always going to be able to get everyone on every piece, right? But there's probably some places that you can give some people a chance to lead musically. And so you can think about that in your selection process as well. Let's talk about some quick tips, some things just to narrow the process. So different composers for your chosen pieces. Interesting, in my first year of teaching, I went to Optimus Festival, now called the Concert Band Festival, and I chose two pieces by the same composer. I didn't even realize it. And then Bill came for one of our visits, and he just said, "Hey, did you know these are actually by the same composer?" I said, "No, I didn't. I just missed that. I was going for contrast in the styles. So I selected In Quiet Times and North Point Fantasy. They're both by James Swearingen. Excellent composer, but the same composer. And so Bill said, "Hey, the adjudicators might mention that. They might say something about that, but it's not the end of the world, just so you know." It was all fine. It's good. They were great pieces, but we just want to again think about the contrast and we want to think about giving our students some varied musical voices. So different composers for your two pieces. Consider suites. If you select a suite, probably just select one. The reason for that is a couple things. I think that suites take a lot of rehearsal time because it's like three or four different pieces that you're working on within one. So it feels like you have all these different pieces to get at, and it takes a lot of time. And then in your performance, if you're doing suites, it can be quite truncated, quite broken up, just short snippets, and you don't really get a sense of like a full arc of a cohesive piece. So if you do two suites, you just have all these little chunks. And so, yeah, probably if you select, I think suites can be really good, but probably just one of them on a festival performance. And then notice the transitions within your pieces. Transitions can also take up a lot of rehearsal time. And sometimes transitions don't necessarily add uh, more musical value to your students' learning relative to how much time they take up in rehearsal. So you can think about that a bit and think about how much rehearsal time you have as well. And just that can help narrow down your decisions. And then read the festival instructions and syllabus before and during the rep selection process. It's very good to read these things multiple times because if you read it early on, you might need to go back to it and just refresh because there's so many details, right? And you might miss something or you might need to clarify something in your thinking. And you need to know ahead of time if you need to order scores well ahead of time, right? Yeah. So you just think about, do I need to order scores and get on it early? All right, let's talk a bit about variety. So I think stylistic variety is the key for me, is as much contrast as possible in your two selections. And then with that, there's going to be variety in additional musical elements, so such as tempi, keys and tonalities, time signatures, textures, etc. So again, you're not going to be able to get everything, check every box, but you want to go for as much contrast as you can. Here's an example. All the examples I'm sharing are things I've programmed for festival in the past, and this was a pairing that I thought was one of the best ones that I've done with a group so far. So Night Song and Afterburn. We're going to listen to a couple little snippets. So first, Night Song, which is a lyrical 6/8. I'm just going to get that started. Should be hearing it now. Hopefully you are. So there we have Night Song, and then the contrasting piece is Afterburn by Standridge. This one is I believe not on the syllabus. Night Song is, but this one is very different. So let's listen to a chunk of Afterburn. All right. So yeah, I thought that was a really good contrast in a lot of ways. One of the things that I really liked about this pairing was it really was great for my percussionists. I had some really strong percussionists, one in particular. And so on the lyrical piece, Night Song, sometimes depending on the lyrical type of music you choose, the percussionist can be kind of bored. And I know because I am one as well. So sometimes that's tricky, right? But Night Song has a beautiful mallet part on the vibes, and I had somebody who was ready for it. and the percussion writing was really good. And it's a slow 6/8 piece, which you don't get a lot of for young bands. So that was really cool. That one worked really well. And then Afterburn has a lot of percussion too, and it's really exciting. So it was a nice way for the percussionists to be challenged in that set. And then so we want to think with the variety is opportunities to showcase sections within the ensemble. We already talked about programming for strengths. So um, yeah, there's so many examples of this. I picked a few examples that I'll share here, but there's so many. Uh, I want to note as well that I think this is more important the higher you go in levels of music because obviously the all the parts get more diverse. There's more things happening, and there's more musical leadership required from different individuals or sections. In level one, you don't have a lot of that. Mostly there's kind of three parts, or maybe even two parts, depending on the piece, and things are more simple and you don't necessarily need to showcase anybody. You're just kind of learning the basics. But as you even get into level two, I think there's a lot of different choices you can make on your repertoire to showcase different groups, and that'll depend on the group that's in front of you. So here's 5 examples. We'll just listen to some chunks of these that I've programmed all of these in the past, and just for certain reasons they kind of stick out to me. So first is Three Irish Folk Songs by McGinty. There's a really neat trombone feature in the third movement. So I'm just going to find that one for you, hopefully. Oh, go back. There we go. Okay. That's a nice little feature that it even goes into harmony there as well. And so it's kind of a level two, maybe an advanced level two, but a really neat one. Next is Royal Oak by Milford. Royal Oak is a cool one if you have a strong snare drummer. The snare drummer needs to be able to play pretty quiet as well. So let's listen to a few sections of Royal Oak. Okay, and then we're going to skip ahead a bit here to another section. Let's see. Cheeky. That's how I would describe that ending. But your snare drum player will be asked to play really musically. They have to play quietly. They have to sustain the time when playing quietly. This is a great one to challenge a percussionist there. Portrait of a Clown is next by Kelly. I said strong flute section. I think also oboe. I don't generally have oboe players, but the oboe is often doubling a lot of what the flute's doing. So let's just listen to a couple sections of Portrait of a Clown. So yeah, these are kind of all level two-ish, maybe some of them more advanced level two. But I would kind of look at these areas and if I had, a strong section, I would pick a piece like that for a section. Like these are just a few examples, and over time you can add some ideas to your mental library. It does take time to be able to do that, but but the more you add, the more you have at your disposal, and you don't lose one. So you just keep adding it, and you can go back to them. Also, I would encourage you to talk to other mentors and colleagues you have, because everybody's going to have their own library of stuff that they know or that they've used. So if you need a clarinet, you need to challenge your clarinets or something, ask a few people and you'll get a couple ideas right away, and then you can look into it. This community is so good at sharing those kinds of ideas, and I guarantee people will tell you like right away they'll have some ideas. Let's keep going with a little bit of higher level music. So next is going to be Amerland by Dahan. This is a level 4, and it has a really, really beautiful euphonium part. Um, it has some range, but if you have some euphoniums that are ready for this, this is absolutely a gorgeous piece. So yeah, that's a really good one. It's interesting when you hear pieces of music, how it brings you back memories of that group that you worked with at that time, or different times, whatever, in general, just memories. And so as we're listening to that, I'm just thinking of this group that we performed that. That's a beautiful piece. Um, Three Airs from Gloucester. This one has a whole bunch of different little features. It's a three movement work. I believe it's three, yeah, three airs. Let's listen to a few snippets, but this one has a lot of musical leadership in a lot of different sections. So let's see. Um, in the first movement, there is a clarinet feature. Okay, and then skipping to the end of the movement, I think the trumpet does the same thing. Trumpet 1. And then skipping ahead a little more, some other sections are featured. Real opportunity there for a horn player to really be showcased, and that's tricky to hold that long note, but that's a neat opportunity there. And then just in the final movement here, the flute section gets to be showcased. Let's find it. So even within that one piece, just it's interesting to just do these little snippets, and you see how many times there's actually these moments for musical leadership. So I think that's one of the things I think quite a bit about when I'm choosing repertoires is what sections are ready for that. Um, Partly it's about showcasing your group and sounding the best you can, but also it's about like developing that musical leadership in your group. So I think both those reasons it's important to do that. And again, this is just a few examples, and you can come up with your own, and you can ask around, and you'll get way more. So yeah, let's move on. But those are just a few examples you can go back to. Let's talk about comments only versus graded performance. So, first of all, level one festival is comments only, purely educational, and I think this is great. I love this for the younger students in their first or second, perhaps, festival experience, just to have only thinking about the musical aspects, not have a ranking or anything like that. Just some strengths and some next steps, I think is great. Beyond level one, though, what are your goals for the experience for your students and yourself? I think it's really important to ask that, and that'll help you understand whether you want to do a comments only or graded. Are your goals education mostly? Is it about performance? Is it about constructive feedback? Perhaps feedback for yourself as well as for your students. Qualifying for nationals maybe is a goal you have, and maybe there's some other, and you're probably going to have a combination of things that you want to get out of it. But you want to think about that as you're deciding whether you want to do comments only or graded. And where's your program currently at? I think is another good question to ask. Are you just starting out? Are you brand new at the school? Are you rebuilding a program? Has things changed for you in terms of, your scheduling or different aspects that are out of your control? Is your program well established? And not that this is going to make your decision for you, but it's going to be part of the decision. So you can see I'm not telling you that one's right and one's wrong because I don't think they are. I think they're both good choices depending on where you're at. Again, going back to my first year of teaching, I was coming into a program that had seen quite a bit of turnover the last few years before I came. One teacher per year for a couple of years. And so the vibe in the program wasn't totally positive. There was not a ton of grade 11s and 12s in the program at that time, just a handful. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do for the festival. I knew I wanted to go to festival, but wasn't sure what to do. And kind of in consultation with Bill a little bit, he suggested, why don't you have the grade 11s and 12s learn the repertoire that the grade 9s and 10s are doing? They can perform all together and keep it simple. The grade 11s and 12s can keep working on other stuff in their class, but they can learn this on the side. So I did that, and I decided to do comments only, because I didn't want anyone thinking about a rating or a ranking. I just wanted music only. And so we did easy music, like it was grade 9 to 12s. We were playing level two, but we played it really musically, and we dug into the expression of it, and it was a really positive thing. The adjudicators gave some great feedback and kind of a bit of cheerleading for the students. Hey, you guys are doing really well. Here's some opportunities that might be next. And even the older students, it was a really positive vibe after that. They thought that was just great to receive some positive feedback, and it sort of built some groundwork for what was to come next. So I think it can be really positive to do comments only. It might just depend on where you're at. So think about that, and I'm not giving you an answer, but that's what I would suggest to consider. And then syllabus versus non-syllabus. So when you're selecting your titles, you have to think about that a little bit. Am I going with syllabus titles? Am I going other titles or a combination? So a couple of quick points first. If receiving a graded adjudication, at least one selection must be from the syllabus. That's for the concert band festival. And you must provide scores for non-syllabus titles or for syllabus titles from a different class than you're registered for. Okay, so even if your title is on the syllabus, but it's in a different class, you still have to provide scores for it. And it's important, I think, to double check your number of scores required for different festivals because level one festival is often different than the concert band festival, and your jazz festivals could be different as well. So, like I said, there's lots of details, and it's important to just double check how many scores do I need if I'm ordering them. So I already said this, but I think the syllabi are excellent guides and they're tried and true. So if all previous boxes can be checked with syllabus titles, then I think it's generally great to stick with syllabus titles. There's nothing wrong with them, and they're going to always be good choices. That being said, I think titles that are not on the syllabus might make sense at times, partly because of all the things we've talked about the group that's in front of you, about wanting to challenge certain sections, etc. It might also be good for you to have variety. Over time, you don't want to do the same pieces over and over again. You want to go back to some for sure, but you might want some variety and you might be looking at some different pieces. And I think it's an opportunity to highlight different composers. So if you think there's a composer that you really feel is important to bring in, that might not be on the syllabus. And I think these are all great reasons to select pieces that aren't on the syllabus. Just remember that if you're doing the graded performance, you need at least one syllabus title. And then when you're thinking about which class to enter, you will look at the syllabus to see what titles are on there because that's going to be part of it. But also consider your overall goals. And here's again an opinion thing, but if in doubt, I think you should err on the side of the lower level so you can dig into the musicality and expression. Again, this might differ. People might be in a different opinion on this, and that's okay. But that's just what I think. I think that a musical performance of easier repertoire is more meaningful for the performers and the audience than kind of barely making it through a performance of repertoire that's really challenging for the group, or if they're just if it's just at the edge of their level technically, and then they're not able to really get at the musical aspects. So yeah, I've really been in a situation where I feel torn about like which level should I go to. And I've typically gone to the easier level and then just try to challenge a group within that level. And then to that end, I think that each class on the syllabi sort of have a range of levels a bit, so you can tailor your selections to your ensemble. And what I mean by that is that the reason that they're on a specific level or in a specific class can be different. So maybe it's in that level because of range, or maybe even just like the trumpet range or something it makes it part of that class. But maybe there's other parts of the piece that are a little easier, and maybe your group's ready for that because you have strong trumpet players. Or maybe the reason it's there is for rhythmic considerations, or maybe the reason it's there is for the key or for harmonic reasons or whatever. There's lots of reasons. And so your group might be particularly suited to certain challenges from a class or from certain titles in a class. So you just have to look around a bit in that level and find something that's going to challenge your group. So even if you uh, go to a lower level, if you're torn between the two and you go to the lower level, you're going to be able to challenge your group still. And I think that's important to think about. All right, kind of our last topic here is our timeline. So this is going to sound obvious, but I think ideally not too late and not too early. We don't want to start our repertoire so early that we're bored by it by the time it's time to perform at festival. And we don't want to leave it too late because then we're not ready and we feel rushed. We don't want either of those. But if we're in doubt, I think starting earlier is better. Um, we want to think about arriving at the right time or getting to peak performance level at the right time. And that is hard to do. And it takes time and experience to figure it out. Also, I just want to say that I think middle school feels way different than high school with the timing of stuff, right? It's like I have moments like every single time with my middle school students, I'm like, we're never going to get this ready. How is this going to come together? But it does, and sometimes it's more last minute than I would like, but it does come together. And I think that's partly because of developmentally where the students are where their brains are at that age. And I think it's also partly about how we structure our classes because a lot more of our time is spent on skill development and just getting things going and understanding what we all need to do technically. And we don't have as much of a focus on repertoire study. So when we're doing the repertoire stuff, it seems like it's it seems like it just comes together later, or it's tougher to judge that timeline for me. So that's just something to note and to consider. I really suggest that you map out your band days and all the calendar days that are out of your control. There's so many things, right? Your holidays, PD days, other no school days, and then and then plan for a couple of additional interruptions. Assume there's going to be a few things you don't know about. Snow days, field trips, school events, assemblies, fire drills. Like the list is so long, and you almost have to assume something's going to come in that you don't know about. So I suggest thinking about that a little bit, and that's where the starting earlier sometimes is okay. And then balance between having a plan and being flexible. Oh, this is tough for me, folks. Like I sometimes just have to almost grit my teeth and say, "Yeah, we're gonna get through this. This wasn't in my plan, right?" But I think it's important to think about that we are only one part of the school community. Um, Band stuff is like the world to us, and that's good because that's what we do. But it is only one part of the overall school team, and I think that we have to be part of that team, and we have to be flexible. So you have to have a plan, but you also have to be ready to give a little bit in those really difficult times. And then my process is I make a list of rep ideas, including festival selections in the summer, and then I narrow it down and adjust it as the school year goes. Not everybody does this, and that's totally okay, but this is kind of how my brain works. So I make a list of ideas. I think about my group that's coming in, and then throughout the year, I'm going to need to take some things off that list or add different things depending on what I'm seeing and hearing from my students. And I do that for like all the different places we're going to perform rep, not just at the festival, but the festival's part of it. And then I can kind of narrow in as we go. Um, and I typically hand out concert band festival pieces prior to winter break, sometimes pretty early, depending on what kind of repertoire we're doing. But we don't really dig into it before winter break. We'll read it a bit. We'll lay some of the conceptual groundwork for it, but we really only dig into those pieces after the break is typically what I do, and then it's a focus on that in the new year. Um, but again, you'll have to look at how your schedule works. If you're meeting very often, you might not have to do it that early. If you're meeting, less times a week or a cycle, you might need to do it earlier. That's just kind of my process. And then for level one festival, typically one of each of my group's festival pieces is a piece they've performed already. Those students have a winter concert in February. And so one of the pieces they perform in February will be typically a festival piece. We'll put it away for a bit. We'll learn some other stuff. We'll bring it back out and refresh it and go deeper with it. And then we'll perform it at the festival. And I just wanted to say that I think this is totally okay to have a festival piece that you've performed already. It doesn't have to always be all new stuff. In fact, I think there's some value in performing things more than once rather than performing it and then never performing it again because we can't improve it more then. You don't want to be performing the same things all year long. That just the students get totally bored by that and I think that it loses its musical value at some point, but it's totally okay to perform a piece twice. I do that with my jazz groups too, because of the timeline of the festival that we go to and stuff like that. Just makes sense. We can't really get a whole new set ready in time. So to do some overlap and then to play like one new piece is helpful. Also, with the middle school students, it really eases that pressure that I talked about the timeline, because it feels like we can't get everything ready. And this way, we know we've performed one piece. We're going to learn a new one, but we know we have one that we've already performed. We just need to make it even better. But it kind of eases the pressure of the timeline a little bit. Okay, so just kind of summarizing a little bit. Thanks for sticking with me here. It's a lot of me hearing my own voice. Consider what's best for your ensemble. Um, Program for strengths, consider which class to register, but I think that it all comes back to what you think is best for your kids. This experience is supposed to be to take them to the next level musically and to give them a great experience. So what's best for your group? Consider variety and contrast, be intentional and methodical, and plan ahead. Consider the comments only versus graded and syllabus versus non-syllabus. I think they're all appropriate choices. Just depends on your circumstance. So just be reflective about that and choose what you think is best for your students. Reminder that this is a personal thing as well as a group thing. I think we have a unique opportunity as music teachers. We get to perform with our students. And I don't know of many other teachers or other places that get to do that. We get to perform with them and share our hearts with our students. So it's a personal thing, and we get to develop that in what makes sense and what resonates with us and our students. There's definitely a lot to consider, but I think also much reward in the process and the end result. And I think it's like anything. The more you do it, the more you improve. Over time, I think you also become more comfortable with the challenge. It's not that the challenge goes away. It's always going to be a new group in front of you. It's always going to be a new situation to navigate, but you do gain experience and skills so that you feel like you're comfortable to meet the challenge as it comes up. And so, yeah, I just want to emphasize it's always a challenge, but you improve the process. So I encourage you to embrace the perpetual puzzle in pursuit of the outstanding opportunity. Um, yeah, this has been really great to be able to share some things with you, and I'm looking forward to being able to connect with you now, hopefully with some questions and just some thoughts from you. But also, I encourage you to email me if you have a question or to talk to your colleagues and mentors. Like I said, everybody's going to have a bunch of ideas right away. And one of the things I love about this MBA community is everybody's willingness to share ideas, everybody's willingness to help each other out. So, with that, I will end my presentation. I look forward to chatting some more. Thank you.
That is awesome. Thank you so much, Derek. Lots of great tips and tricks, and just so much positivity and method to the madness. Um, I know I was definitely that early service teacher who picked some rep that was too hard and regretted it. I think that's a common, I mean, it's hard, right? You're getting to know your students, your program, the culture of your school. You don't realize how many times you're not going to see the kids because of 15 things that are completely out of your control and that you can't anticipate, as you've mentioned. Just so much good stuff in there. So I just for the folks who are going to be watching this later on, I'm going to thank you now, and then we can move into questions and discussion. So online folks who are watching this sometime down the road, thank you for tuning in on our YouTube, and you've seen Derek's email there in the video. I'm sure you can reach out to him anytime or reach out through MBA or through any of the mentors with any questions you might have. And thanks for tuning in.